Today we're going over some budget-friendly commanders that you need to build.
I'm Mia, and I love building commanders on a budget.
I'm Beezy. I like taking a $20 bill out of my wallet and turning it into an entire commander deck. We're sponsored by Card Kingdom because that's part of how you take money from your wallet and turn it into a commander deck. You can figure out whatever your budget is, and if you spend $50 on there, you get free shipping.
We, the Nitpicking Nerds, buy our singles and sealed product and whatever we need on Card Kingdom. So go check it out. Use our link. Tell them we sent you.
And
also,
sponsored by Dragon Shield, best sleeves in the multiverse.
Good sleeves.
You always do that, so I figured I'd make you say it this time. You can save 5% on your order of real money tax dollars that you worked hard to earn by entering the code
Nerds
at checkout. It's quite simple. We're also sponsored by Moxfield. There's somewhere in this video at basically a random point there will be a Moxfield ad, and you won't be able to guess where it is. And if you said you did and you were right, you were wrong.
And if you want to check out our Patreon, that is the best way to help us put food in our stomachs and send the cats to college. You can get your decks audited by us. You can schedule one-on-one time with us, and you can even see some cool gameplay. Plus, if you've been curious about where to get our cool Amber, Miso, and NN mats, you can buy them on Gamer Mats. These are not the serialized ones we have on Whatnot. However, this is a way to get a full trio of them as a bundle, plus also bundle some cool mats on their site.
Yeah, they're way cheaper there, so you can save a bunch of money, and it's a very, very good way to support the channel so the cats can go to college. But we've got a little budget video, not quite budget bombs, but I want to talk about some commanders that were very specifically budget friendly. And so when we say budget friendly, we kind of mean a commander that's dirt cheap by itself and can be well supported by many cards effectively without you having to break the bank or spend a ton of cash.
I think there are a lot of archetypes that can fall into very budget friendly ones. The first one being Urza, Chief Artificer at 99 cents. 3 white, blue, black for a 4/5, but it has affinity for artifact creatures. Artifact creatures you control have menace. Beginning of the end step, you create a 0/0 construct with +1/+1 for each artifact you control. You can play Urza very quickly with his affinity for artifacts and swing in with giant constructs that you make on your end step.
This came out of a Commander Precon, and every card we're about to mention is less than $1, so they're all going to be super affordable. Don't have to worry about that. The game plan is obviously just to play this thing quickly with artifact creatures in play. The best play pattern is you want to play a 1-drop artifact creature into a 2-drop mana dork, which lets you play Urza on turn 3.
There are some amazing cards in here, one of them being Ornithopter of Paradise. Yes, this counts as a 2-mana mana dork, but this counts for 2 mana if you're casting Urza himself.
Yeah, this is just part of the curve. You want to play this thing on turn 2, you want to throw out Urza, and it's more valuable than it would be later in the game. You know, like a Signet would be, normally a Signet is more valuable than Ornithopter later, but Ornithopter is more valuable in this deck because now it helps reduce the commander tax when Urza's died a couple times. You get them out, and then it's like, great, next turn, I'll play Urza, boosts the construct power. It's just a nice little workhorse.
If you need more constructs, though, how about Dig Site Engineer? You can pay 2 to make more constructs, and those end up hitting for so much damage. Our friend has a budget Urza deck, and it slaps really hard.
The thing that Urza does that is secretly really annoying, besides make constructs all the time, is it gives them menace. And menace on like a 15/15 means it's not really chump blockable anymore. You have to give up like real resources. Even if you're double chumping, how many of those can you afford before there's like 3 constructs coming at you? You're probably going to die.
Especially when you can keep making them so quickly, whether that's Dig Site or Urza just comes down quickly enough and you can just make an entire board of these creatures. Even a 6/6 or a 7/7 construct with menace is pretty scary, especially if the board isn't like that clogged already.
Yeah, it doesn't feel too good. Now, if you wanted to go the sort of like evasive route with this deck, you could play something like Thopter Spy Network, where now it makes Thopters, and when your Thopters and other small dinky artifact creatures hit, you get to draw cards, and of course that fuels more constructs down the line.
I wouldn't even say this is more of an evasive route. This is just good card draw, and you just so happen to also get some Thopters out of it. It's just it's a whole package of artifact creatures, which can be built on a very tight budget.
Plus, Urza giving the Thopters menace means you're probably always getting a card, at least from the Thopters.
Yeah, especially if they're not buffed or anything. And that's damage that can be just really chipped away as the game goes on, and that life starts to matter in the long run.
Yeah, and it turns out Urza's really good friends with other Urzas, like Urza Prince of Krug, who gives +2/+2 boost to all your artifact creatures, so now your constructs are like stupid huge, but the rest of your creatures are now like big enough that they can brawl, and they all have menace, so they're going to be bashing in. And then if you got a bunch of mana laying around, nothing to do with it, go ahead and make some more stuff. Make another construct or make another 1/1.
Those Thopters are going to get real scary once there are 3/3s in the air. There's also Organic Extinction. If you have so many artifact creatures already, your opponents, it'll just be a one-sided board wipe with this.
Yeah, you take the game in its current state and you just turn it on its head. And instead of removing all the resources from everybody, you go, all my stuff is still in play. None of your stuff is still in play. LOL, here's 15 constructs.
We talk a lot about one-sided board wipes, but this is a great one in this deck.
It's definitely important, and maybe it's one of the more expensive cards. It might be like 80 cents. We're going to move to cranial plating, though. This is where the deck starts to get nasty, and this is where you start dying because it can auto-equip an instant speed for 2 black, and it gives +1/+0 for each artifact you control. So forget the constructs. You can jump those. Those are at least known entities, but all their stuff's got menace. So even if you let that Ornithopter of Paradise through from 5 minutes ago, it's now all of a sudden a 14/2, and you're going to die.
Every artifact creature immediately becomes the biggest threat ever.
We're going to move to the opposite end of the spectrum here with Goreclaw, Terror of Calcisma. It's like a 99-cent card, and this is green Stompy. 3 and a green, 4/3. Creatures you cast with power 4 or greater cost 2 less to cast, and when it attacks, creatures with power 4 or greater get +1/+1 and gain trample until end of turn.
It's the trample that really does it for me because you can have big dudes all day, but if I can chump block them, it doesn't really matter. But because it's just your commander attacking that gives them trample, it's not even like the commander has to be fully dealing combat damage or something. All of your board that's 4 or greater just becomes an immediate threat.
Yeah, I love how cheap this card is, and this is the kind of things it enables are very, very silly. The game plan is just ramp out gigantic creatures way ahead of schedule as quickly as you can, and then Goreclaw comes in. You probably need a little bit of extra oomph to push over the top, like an overrun or something, but Goreclaw helps with that, and it's just so great to have the ramp and part of the payoff that you need in the same package. If you haven't played with Goreclaw, I know Commander Masters drafters have figured out the power of this one, but just reducing, going like Goreclaw turn 4 and then like 7-drop turn 5, that's pretty much the tamest thing you can do. There's also plenty of 2 and a green 4 power creatures that are now 1 mana, and it just lets you take a lot of other bulky, very, very cheap cards and use them in a great way because now they're just super mega overcharged.
I'm happy to see that this is a budget commander because some of our more favorite budget green stompy commanders like Galta, for instance, have gone up in price recently, but this reprint in Commander Masters is a great budget bomb. One of the best things to put in this deck is Yeva, Nature's Herald. This gives all your green creatures flash, so with a reduction and flash, you can just put out blockers instant speed or just surprise people and doing it on their end step before your turn so they can attack immediately.
It's a lot harder to react when they go Goreclaw pass and you're like, okay, I guess that's just Goreclaw, I'll kill it when I get around to it. And then they're like, nope, end step Yeva plus another 4/2 plus another 4/4 and then attack you with like, what is that, 5, 10, 15, 20 at least? It's going to be a big surprise out of nowhere.
Plus with that trample that Goreclaw adds immediately.
It's huge.
Yeah, it's going to be so big. Also, Thunderfoot Baloth. BZ mentioned that you need a little bit of an overrun to help push through damage, but you already get trample. Why not double trample and then +2/+2?
Double trample, folks. How are you not jumping at the opportunity to own these Magic cards? Yeah, Thunderfoot Baloth will be 4 mana and give +2/+2. That's a nice boost, and it's just another bulk rare card that's kind of like not quite good enough, I would say, for some higher power commander decks, but on a budget with the synergy, this becomes way more than good enough. It's perfect.
This gets really big real fast. There's also Nasty Terasti, aka Terastodon, because there is going to be a cost reduction for this, and you're going to be destroying a bunch of permanents and giving them 3/3s instead, which they will not be happy with, maybe even their lands.
And early Terastodon can be disastrous. We had a video, earlier about sometimes it's okay to destroy lands, sometimes we need answers for them, and this can be one of those. Comes down, blows up your Field of Dead, and now your hopes of winning are just gone.
But hey, you get a 3/3 in response.
I want 2/2s. And now that we've got Amber here and she's all happy and purring, we can talk about Mosswort Bridge, one of her favorite lands to play. It's got Hideaway, and it's kind of a free roll in these super mega competitive green decks. I pretty much play it everywhere just because I love the effect. It's really easy to get 10 power, and obviously in this deck, it's a complete shoe-in staple.
Breaking timing restrictions is so powerful too, and you're almost always going to have 10 or more power because it makes it so easy with ramping these creatures out.
Yeah, and when you want 4 power creatures and removal and a borderline win condition all in the same card, we turn to Azuri's Predation, which still costs like no dollars to obtain, and it makes 4/4s for each creature your opponents control. They fight all of them, so if you've got any static buffs like Thunderfoot Baloth, they now become 6/6s. Any beast that survives just sort of stays around, ready to be overran by Goreclaw next turn.
This is such a good green board wipe. You're not going to have trouble casting it because you're mono green, so you can ramp really fast. The 4/4s are perfect for this deck. And just in the end, that's going to be not only a one-sided board wipe, but just the thing to kill your opponents too.
Yeah, we've got other synergy pieces that are going to go well with it. Like I've played in Azuri's Predation with a Garruk's Uprising in play. And don't tell me Garruk's Uprising is not perfect for this deck. So then it becomes it's like a Decree of Pain that draws a card each time a beast enters. It's just outrageous. When you get your ducks in a row, it's obscene. And we also have payoffs like Garruk's Uprising, like I just mentioned, actually. We also have Outcaster Trailblazer, brand new card, 40 cents tops, and it draws a card when your powers 4 or greater enters, and it even gives you a mana when it enters. So it could be, with Goreclaw, 0 mana.
This is such a good synergy for this. I'm happy that we're bringing like older cards and we're getting the newer cards in with them too. Moving on to an archetype that I've recently built, the Rakdos Sacrifice has a lot of cheap cards that have a very strong base to them, and the one we picked for here is Lagomos, Hand of Hatred at 35 cents. 1 black-red for a 1/3. Beginning of combat, your turn, you create a 2/1 with Trample and Haste, and you sack it at the beginning of the next end step. But if you tap him, you can search your library for a card, put it into your hand, and shuffle, but only if 5 or more creatures have died this turn.
That sounds like a lot.
It sounds like a lot, but with things like Fleshback Marauder and just things that make your opponent's sacrifice, it makes it pretty easy because this already gives you a body to sacrifice right off the bat.
Yeah, so we're just trying to cause as many creature deaths either through our side or their side as possible, and just get consistent tutors and keep opponents off balance. And what I like so much about this as a budget deck is you can splurge a little bit. Like let's say you have a $50 Lagomos deck. You can splurge a little bit on a few $5 cards or a $3 card. But in this deck, since you're going to tutor probably every game with his ability, you have access to them every time. And it sort of can like make up for the lack of bangers you have, because you're always going to have your $5 banger.
I have Lagomos in the 99 of my Mahadi deck, and it is so easy to just keep tutoring.
Free. It feels free.
It's so easy because all you have to do is tap him. You're not going to be swinging with a 1/3 anyways, and it's just 5 or more makes it so easy in these decks where you're just making a ton of disposable creatures to begin with.
Yeah, you spoiled this earlier, but spoiler alert, Plaguecrafter says each player sacrifices a creature. So as long as everybody has one, that by itself is 4 deaths, and Lagomos gives you a 5th token to throw away and do whatever you want with. So that alone is each player sacrifices a creature. You've removed your opponent's stuff. Some of the opponents might have only had 1 or 2 important things out. And now we get Demonic Tutor just cuz?
It's so good. It's so much value. There's also Impulsive Pilferer. You want a lot of little dorks to die really easily and get you value. This is going to give you a treasure. And if you have a way to sacrifice him, you could do that immediately. And that's just 1 to the death count.
Yes, well, it's actually 4 to the death count, because in the same turn, if you have a sack outlet, which is kind of assumed in the black-red sacrifice deck, you sack the Pilferer, you encore it for 3 more Pilferers, and then you sacrifice them. So now you're even on mana. You have treasures to spend or use or save, and then you just have the extra 2/1 token from Lagomos, and all of a sudden, we are once again demonic tutoring, and these cards cost like 5 cents.
Woe Strider is a great way to sacrifice, plus it comes in with a token, and it can be escaped if you need it.
Yeah, it's like a little bit of an extra, not upgrade to Viscera Seer, because Viscera Seer is cheaper, but it's an extra. I'm very happy to have it on top of the usual Viscera Seer, and I was surprised that Mayhem Devil is actually under $1 as well, and this is one of the go-to Rakdos Sacrifice finishers. This is probably a card you're going to tutor for, honestly.
I think that this is under $1 because of the Rav Remastered set.
Yep.
But it is so good, whether you're sacrificing treasures or your actual creatures or whatever. And if other people have to sacrifice treasures to cast their spells too, you can deal the damage. It's just so nasty.
And then when Lagomos is out, Mayhem Devil helps make up for it. If you can only sacrifice 1 or 2 creatures, now Mayhem Devil finishes off the other required creatures, so you can get your tutor every single turn. Not only is it a card that helps you tutor, but is often a tutor target.
It's so much value. Dread Return is great in this deck too, because you can bring something back from the graveyard, but with its flashback cost, that's the most important part, because you can sacrifice 3 things to get another thing back. Doesn't really matter what you get back, because that's 3 plus the 1 that Lagomos makes to make 4, and if you can just sacrifice 1 more thing or kill 1 more thing with things like pings from Mayhem Devil or whatever, you got your 5 and you've got your free demonic tutor.
Yeah, there's definitely a version of this deck that leans heavier into the reanimate value side, maybe some self-mill. And I like Dread Return in that just because it felt like it's like a fresh take. You know, instead of just pinging you with Impulsive Pilfers, I'm going to get back like a 6-drop. And then because I sacrificed 3 things and have Lagomos and I'm a stack deck still, boom. Maybe the 6-drop when I got back killed something when it enters. And now guess what? It's tutor time.
Maybe with Dusk Mangler or something because everyone has to sacrifice a creature. It's so good.
I love
it's
Dusk
such a
Mangler.
good budget bomb.
Honestly, honorable mention, shout outs to our friend Dusk Mangler, big fan of the show. He would be so happy that we mentioned him here.
Mirkwood Bats, one of my favorite commons to come out in the last few years, if ever. It's so good.
She loves it so much.
Because you're making tokens, and when you create the token with Lagomos, you're gonna ping. When you sacrifice it, you're gonna ping. Whether you're making treasures, that's extra damage too. Every time Mirkwood Bats comes down in my Mahadi deck, Beezy's scared immediately, and for the people who aren't scared, that's the wrong move.
I catch Mia sometimes making googly eyes at her Mirkwood Bats, whether they're in a deck or in a trade binder, and I just wonder, are my days on this show numbered? Am I going to be replaced by Mirkwood Bats? And that's a question that will be answered eventually, I'm sure.
Our editor would be completely fine if it was me and Mirkwood Bats hosting.
The new duo. We're going to go on to our next one while I still have a job, and this is Honest Rutstein, brand new card. It's 79 cents, and oh man, I love this thing. This is the budget Marin. Marin is a little bit out of our budget, so we're going to pay 1 green-black for a 3/2 ETB, return a creature card from your graveyard to your hand, but also creature spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. So this deck is all about using the cost reduction that Rutstein and other cards give us to power out more creatures, which is going to fuel our recursion cycle.
If BZ didn't have enough graveyard decks, he would have built this already. But one of the great things to reduce your cost for creatures is Amori the Collector, because that's with this plus your commander, that's going to be 2 less for creatures.
Now look, you don't have to play Umori as a companion, but I do think you are morally obligated to play Umori as the companion, because doesn't that just work so perfectly? This is the thing that got me brewing, and I'm like, I just can't afford another green-black commander.
Other Golgari base deck.
We're already out of Overgrown Tombs. I don't know if I can stress that anymore. But Umori in the 99, also very powerful. It just does exactly what you want, I think.
Undead Butler, this is going to come down and mill you a few, and this is just value very, very early to get that plan started.
Yes, I also really like Balelthno, classic, older value card. And it's like, this card would be great, but it's a little too expensive. Well, guess what? In the Rutstein and or Umori deck, you can reduce it to maybe 3 or 4 mana, and now it's very, very good. And now you're going to get into these loops where your creatures don't cost much mana, and a lot of them bring a creature back. And so I think the other way to build Rutstein too is like play a lot of colorless cards that are like just creatures that do whatever, like a Triskelion. I just picked one random out of my head. If you can reduce that to 0, you are in Turbo Town.
That really can go fast. There's also Lawless Giant, because this is going to care how many creatures are in your graveyard, and this could be a good non-combat way to finish the game.
And it's so budget. I mean, we could talk about our friend Dusk Mangler still, but I mean, Lawless Giant has only ever really been printed at common or uncommon, so it's at most 35 cents on Card Kingdom. They might have even made a special exception and
10 cents.
And they'll give you money to put Lawless Giant in your deck, and it's just a nice finisher. It only hits one opponent, but for the price you're paying and for the amount we can recur it, that's just fine with us.
You're going to have so many bring card back from the graveyard anyways. It's like, okay, I guess I'll block with this with your big thing. Oh, it's back and there's more damage now. Bringer of the Last Gift, this is a new one. This is Living Death stapled onto a guy, but he's so cheap.
It's Living Death on a guy. Yeah, this is the win con. Even if you are playing the all creatures restriction, this is going to be the slam dunk that ends the game. Now, it is sort of a nombo with Lawless Giant, unless you have sack outlets, in which case you are still cooking. You're still cooking in that pot.
That pot is still cooking. There's also Timeless Witness, because whether you mill this or bring it back, you can get value and get something out of your graveyard again, because maybe you milled something that's really important and it's not a creature you can get back.
Yeah, the more I think we need to move on, because the more I see of old Honest Rutstein, the more I just gonna go like, ooh.
Please, no, we're out of undergrowth stadiums already.
Raised Dead Kindred? What if everything was Raised Dead? How would you beat me? Maybe we go to the next card.
The next card, Kaikar Wind's Fury at 69 cents. Nice. 1 blue, red, white for a 3/3 with flying. When you cast a non-creature spell, you get a 1/1 with flying, and if you sack a spirit that you make, you add a red. So you can chain together a ton of cheap spells to either make an army of flying spirits and you can swing in because they're so evasive, or you can sack those spirits to make a ton of mana and then pour that into really big spells.
Yeah, the spirits won't know when they're being created what your intentions are, but I think pretty soon, they're going to see their comrades get sacrificed real quick.
They'll know what's coming.
Yeah, they'll be like, oh, okay, what was it? You used me For land development. That's what the spirits are going to be. Or they're going to be charging into battle with something like Balmor, Battle Mage Captain. When you cast all these spells that are going to be making spirits, the ones that were already out just get buffed like majorly, and it's a definite solid win con. I love Balmor. That's no secret.
Have you considered maybe making mana for free with a 3-mana spell? Things like Frantic Search, because you're going to be chaining these together. You're going to be untapping your land, so it's basically free, but you're actually going to be up mana later because you'll also get a spirit with it.
Yeah, and then if you have like a Goblin Electromancer to reduce that cost, you're really getting some serious value. If you want some backup Kaikars, there's like Young Pyromancer and all of his friends that say, hey, whenever you cast something, I'll make another token. That's probably good for the Balmor beatdowns. There aren't really any other ones that make spirits off of the cast trigger, but we'll settle.
If you want to pour that mana into very big spells, though, there's things like Pull from Tomorrow to let you draw a ton of cards and find the one you're looking for, or White Sun Zenith, where you can make X cats, where X is the amount of mana you pour in, and if you have enough spirits, that can be so many.
Yeah, we can. In White Sun Zenith, it's interesting because then you'd be upgrading all your spirits and all of your lands that tap for mana into 2/2s that are surprised instant speed, or you could go like Comet Storm's a little bit out of our budget, but Jaya Assimilating Infurrow, some kind of budget X spell where you go, I have 7 spirits. Instead of attacking you with Balmor, I'm gonna blow you up for 21 with Jaya Assimilating Infurrow.
If you have a little bit more money too, Crackle with Power is closer to a budget bomb. Now it's a few bucks, but if you're willing to splurge on that, that is a very great one for this one.
This is my favorite weirdo card because this kind of demands you go in a totally different direction with Kaikar, but Quintorius, Field Historian, I thought this was awesome. This wants you to have spells leave your graveyard, and it gives you spirits. Well, Kaikar already gives spirits, so we're kind of got something going, and we just need to play a bunch of Flashback and Jumpstart in our deck, and then you kind of have like a secret second commander who also like powers things out. I just thought that was a really neat alternate way to take Kaikar. If you're sick of Young Pyromancer or Frantic Search, you could go the Quintorius route.
I mean, that's definitely a surprising one, but if anyone wants to try that, you should definitely let us know below and see how that sounds.
And if you're thinking budget content, I love budget content. I wish the Nitpicking Nerds would make more of it. You might not have seen this episode of Budget Bombs, which is the exact budget content you need to see right now.